Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a long ride from really end of June until now. We've been releasing videos every single week on this channel. And we are so appreciative of all of you guys who have stuck around. Hopefully you have taken something from the channel, but you've helped us grow. You're supporting us directly. We appreciate you guys so much. Before we get into this week's matchup, the championship week, which if you're watching, congratulations. You are a fantasy football freaking stud. I do have a couple people that we need to shout out on this channel because Nathan and I obviously sit in front of cameras. We're obviously the most attractive people in the company, clearly. Come on, look at him. But there are so many people behind the scenes that make the videos that you watch every week possible, and they deserve literally more thanks than Nathan and I ever would, legitimately, because they do more work on this stuff than Nathan and I ever do. We have two fantastic video editors in Sherry and Becca, so shout out our video editors. We have some of the best looking videos, in my opinion, in fantasy football spaces because we have some of the best editors in the fantasy football space. So shout out to Sherry and Becca for editing all of our videos. We had a ton of research went into these rankings every week to make sure they were as accurate as they possibly could be. Tom, of course, you guys know Tommy Peanuts on the Discord. He does a ton of work for us. But Kyle put in so much work ranking these guys for us every week so we could look over and make our own changes. The analytics, looking at the matchups, looking at, the weather, everything. We literally had Kyle doing all of this. He was the rankings czar to make sure these things were accurate. Make sure we didn't miss anything at all. And the amount of work that he put in this year was absolutely astronomical. So if you enjoyed the rankings videos especially, you have Kyle to thank for that because he absolutely kicked butt with these every week. Of course, we have our development team. CJ did a lot of work for us this year on this as well, and Rashav. So, shout out to those guys. I'm not missing anybody. Am I? Did I get everybody? We have a large
Cole
team.
helped us with our process.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a big team, but those guys, a big shout out to our whole entire team for a great season. And again, say thank you to them in the comments if you would, please, if you're still watching. Again, they are, we literally could not do this without them. We would literally just be here talking to each other without them. So shout out to the team. You guys all killed it this year. We love you. We're proud of you. And again, we're thankful for all of you guys. And it's our last chance to help you in fantasy football this season. That's what we're going to do right now. And we're going to do our matchups video for this week. Again, championship week. There are a lot of weird matchups this week in the sense that it's going to be dependent on game script. A couple of these guys, we have a lot of weird injuries to some of the split backfields. We're going to cover this the best we can with the information we have. We're recording this early because it's Christmas week, so Merry Christmas to you all. But at the same time, we have limited information right now, and so we're going to do our very, very best to see what we can do here. All right, so let's start with Dallas, Washington here. I think there are 3 games on Christmas Day. Is that right? I think there are 3 games on Christmas Day. I think they're all on Netflix. But let's start with Dallas, Washington. And the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to start all these guys every week. And it's obviously green lights across the board for these guys. Javonte, CD, and Pickens. And I realize, Javonte has been a little bit underwhelming recently. You still have to start him in this matchup, in my opinion. I think this is a great matchup for him to end the year. I've still had him in a lot of my lineups as well. But, he's just been a little bit more hit or miss. Second half of the season, he's not been near as good as he was first half of the season. But he did have 5 straight double-digit games still from week 11 to week 15. And then the Chargers game, tough matchup. Game script didn't call for a lot of carries. You'll put Javonte in this week. And so start all the Cowboys this week. Again, green lights across the board. Now, the Commanders it's going to be interesting. If Washington can hang with Dallas, Chris Rodriguez is a meh for us. He could be a potential good flex option because, he's been decent. Jeremy McNichols and Jacory Kamara, you don't start him. It is a great matchup for these guys, though, and I think Chris Rodriguez is worth thinking about in your flex spot. It's just going to depend on the game script. Now, Terry McLaurin's a great start for this week in the B tier. Obviously, he's a little bit more boomer bust. And so, yeah, right. He's a little bit more boomer bust. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if he had 4 points this week. But I wouldn't be surprised if he had 20, to be honest with you. And Deebo Samuel, kind of the same thing. I'm comfortable starting both of these. Obviously, I think the bigger question here for these guys is going to be their quarterback situation. Mariota is day-to-day after that game, and so if he plays, I think Terry and Deebo are guys you start. And again, this is going to be a pretty fantasy-friendly game for the last week of the season here for championship week.
Yeah, then we got Detroit and Minnesota. Detroit fighting for the lives here, and they need some help for the playoffs. Jahmyr Gibbs, S tier. Expect him to have a good week. Still against Minnesota's run defense, which is neutral in terms of the production that they've allowed of recent. But again, Gibbs should be fine. David Montgomery is going to be a sit. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams going to be in the A and C tiers respectively. This is the toughest wide receiver matchup in fantasy football, and it just happens to be championship week. Amon-Ra obviously had a very disappointing performance against Pittsburgh in the semifinals, 9 points. Hopefully you made it through. Again, if you're watching this video, you did, and you survived Amon-Ra performing at that level, which was very underwhelming. Same with Jamo, who only had 12 points in that game. I would not be shocked if one of these guys lays an absolute dud in this matchup. But again, if I were to put my money on it, it would be a guy like Jamo, who's more boom bust naturally anyways, as opposed to your slot wide receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who still had 9 points last week in a very disappointing showing. And by the way, 2 touchdowns called back. Isaac Tesla, I tier, he's going to be a sit. He's touchdown or nothing. Then we've got Minnesota's side of the ball. Aaron Jones going to be in the D's tier here, assuming that he's healthy. I know he got banged up last week. Hopefully he's good to go this week. D tier, I'm going to list him as a meh. This is a neutral matchup against Detroit's run defense. Aaron Jones has not been super consistently reliable all season, but he's a guy that you can flex if you need to. Nobody else behind him is going to be start worthy or flex worthy. Jordan Mason, even though he's injured, Xavier Scott next man up, he's still not rankable. Justin Jefferson, I'll give you the green light in the D's tier. I yesterday was sitting watching that game, the Minnesota game and Giants game, and I was sick. Not because I was going up against Jefferson in the toilet bowl, but because I was sick that I was going to be wrong about telling all these people to start Justin Jefferson last week and giving them the okay. And then it ended up being fine because he had 15 points. He was a very solid start last week. Again, not going to break the bank or anything like that, but he didn't screw you last week. This week against Detroit, Detroit's allowed a lot of production to receivers, like the second most amount of fantasy points to wide receivers of recent. Not to mention the last time that they went up against Detroit, Jefferson had a solid day. I think he had like 16 points. He had a touchdown. And that was with J.J. McCarthy. We don't know what's going to happen to McCarthy this week, if he's going to be good to go or not. Regardless, Jefferson was productive when McCarthy was on the field last week, and he had more productive receptions when it was Max Brosmer. So I'll give you the okay this week. Again, he's always going to be risky, low floor flex, but he gets the target volume. He's probably going to get 8-9 targets, and hopefully that'll be enough for him to get like 14 plus points. Addison behind him is going to be a sit. Naylor also going to be a sit.
The Denver-Kansas City game is not good for fantasy, to be honest with you. Like, it's a tough matchup for Denver, who, Kansas City's defense isn't as banged up as their offense is. And so their defense is still going to be, this is going to be a rock fight. Tough game for Harvey, but Harvey's had 3 20-point games in his last 4 games, and it's because of his touchdown upside. And obviously his receiving upside, he had 12 points receiving, I think, in his last game. So I think you have to start Harvey in the C tier. I think you have to start Sutton in the C tier. He had a solid game last week as well. And so I'm going to start both those guys and sit Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, and Julian McLaughlin this week for the Denver Broncos. In terms of the Kansas City Chiefs, there's one green light, and it's the fact that there's still a lingering green light for the wide receiver production here because of Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice. Pacheco, Xavier Worthy, Kareem Hunt, Marquise Brown, they are sits. This is a terrible matchup. Who knows who the quarterback there is going to be? You do not start a Kansas City Chief in your lineup this week, and it sucks. If you have Chiefs, like if you built your team around 1 or 2 Chiefs or even just 1 Chief, like you've lost them. It's gone. Rashee Rice isn't even playing.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rice had the concussion last week. You couldn't even decide if you wanted to start
and against one of the toughest defenses in the league. I mean, it's all Reds. You don't start any of these guys for Kansas City ever.
Yeah. Houston and the Chargers. On Houston's side of the ball, Woody Marks hopefully going to play this week. He was declared out 10 minutes before the game started against Vegas. So that screwed over a lot of people, I'm sure, but he's going to be listed as a meh in this matchup. This is really tough. The Chargers' run defense of recent has been really, really good, so it's going to be a red light for Woody Marks. That's why he's in the D's tier. That's why he's going to be a meh. Nobody behind him is startable. Nico Collins going to be the only startable asset, the only green light asset in Houston's offense. He'll be in the A tier. His big playability is really second to none. He essentially single-handedly won that game for Houston last week against Vegas, who, by the way, CJ Stroud still looks awful. He had 9 points against Vegas, again, in a good matchup. So that's why he's not going to be in the S tier. He is going to be, a little more up and down, but hopefully he can get some touchdowns in this matchup against the Chargers. And again, everybody else behind him, Jaden Higgins, Christian Kirk, are sits. This is a red light matchup for Houston. The Chargers' pass defense, also second least amount of points of fantasy wide receivers of recent. The Chargers side of the ball, we got Hampton, who's going to be back up in the B tier. He had a good day, a real solid day against Dallas, good for 16 points, 16 carries, 85 yards, a touchdown. I believe that Kamani Vidal suffered a neck injury, and that's why Hassan Haskins got some snaps. If Vidal does not play...
Yes, Vidal did get injured, by the way.
If Vidal does not play this coming week, Hampton his snap share is going to go back up to like 75+%, and he's going to be a must start. We'll give you the green light there. B tier, and then Hassan Haskins not going to be a relevant guy. Now with the wide receivers, Houston has allowed like the least amount of fantasy points to wide receivers of recent, or second least fantasy points. Ladd McConkey and QJ both had good days against Dallas's defense. So I wouldn't get too excited about both of these guys coming and tearing up Houston secondary. It hasn't happened all year against Houston secondary for any team. So you're probably looking at at least one of these guys laying a dud, if not both. They're both going to be in the F tier, and they're both going to be labeled as mez this week. It's not a good offensive matchup on either side of the ball in this game. Expect it to be low scoring.
Yeah, it's not. That one's also just not a good one for fantasy football championship week.
No, it's not.
This one's not great, but it's not the worst. Like Derrick Henry, it's a tough matchup for him, but like now they don't have Parsons, so like, and Parsons is more of a pass rushing, disruptor anyways, but like Henry's going to be D tier for us. It's still like tough run defense that the Green Bay Packers have this year. So he's a start though. Zay Flowers is a start. B tier for Flowers. D tier for Derrick Henry. Sit Keaton Mitchell, Rashad Bateman. And then for the Green Bay Packers, a good matchup for the wide receivers, a middling matchup for the running backs here. Jacobs in the B tier, you're starting him every week no matter what. Christian Watson in the C tier, you'll start him, but I'm sitting Emmanuel Wilson, Jaden Reed, and Dontavian Wicks. Again, better wide receiver matchup than running back matchup. The fact of the matter is these Green Bay wide receivers are so hit and miss anyways, you don't want to start anybody besides Watson, who's going to be in the C tier, who's been decent recently, by the way. So I think you can start him for sure. You can't start anybody else here. So start the 4 guys that are starting at each position in this matchup, and don't start anybody else in this matchup.
Don't feel super great about anybody in Arizona's offense going up against Cincinnati this week. Even though it is a good defensive matchup, the only guy I really feel good about is Michael Wilson, which we'll touch on here with Marv being back healthy. But Michael Carter, F tier, going to be listed as a meh. He had like 70+% snap share when Bam Knight went down with the injury the week before. This week down to 50% snap share with DeMarcado taking 30+%, and he only had like 11 carries. You don't feel great about starting him, but this is the matchup that you would want to see for a running back of Michael Carter's caliber going up against Cincinnati's run defense, who's allowed like the most amount of points of fantasy running backs of recent. DeMarcado is going to be a sit in the G tier behind him because Michael Carter does have the snap share upper hand there. Michael Wilson going to be down to the D tier this week, and his day was salvaged by that insane catch that he had on the sideline in the first half.
Heck yeah.
Went down from 18, 15, 17, 16, and 11 targets down to 3 targets because Marv is back. And that's the reality. Once Marvin Harrison Jr. is back in that offense, Michael Wilson goes from being a game breaker to just kind of middling. And it was a weird game because Marv only had 50% snap share and only had 3 targets. Brissett looked the worst that he's looked all season since he's been the starter for Arizona. That was a tough game. Going up against Cincy's defense, I would expect Michael Wilson to be a decent start in the D's tier. I'll give you the green light there. Marvin Harrison did absolutely nothing for me to feel comfortable with you starting him. He dropped another touchdown pass. At least Michael Wilson is catching his opportunities. It continues to be an incredibly disappointing year for Marv. And honestly, I'm going to list him as a meh in the F tier. If you sit him, I don't blame you whatsoever. Cincinnati, Chase Brown, S tier. He's been one of the best running backs the second half of the season in fantasy football, period. P. Ryan behind him, and this is a great run defense matchup against Arizona, who's allowed so much production to running backs. Jamar Chase, S tier, T. Higgins, B tier. Both of these guys expect him to be productive. This is Joe Burrow at the end of the year. He always is amazing in garbage time games, garbage season, I guess, where they're irrelevant, but they're going to put up a lot of fantasy points.
Taylor season.
Yep.
I'm going to cover both of these matchups because there are like legitimately 4 guys total in the next 2 matchups that you can even start.
This is brutal.
Pittsburgh, Cleveland has 3 of them because Pittsburgh has Gainwell, Warren, and Metcalf. You've been able to start Gainwell and Warren, and they're C and D tier for us. Neutral matchup for them. I'm still starting both of them. They've both been really good. Like Gainwell with the receiving upside, you've been able to start him. His last couple games here, 23 points, 7 targets in each of his last 3 games, 6 or more targets in 5 of his last 6 games. He's just somebody you can, and also gets anywhere from like 5 to 10 carries a game. And so like you starting Kenneth Gainwell. But Jalen Warren, he's also continued to produce even though Gainwell has been a large part of that offense. 29 points against Detroit, 15 points, 12 points outside of, the game against Miami where he didn't have a ton of points. He's still been consistently productive, like flex spot productive. But Gainwell's been the most consistent guy there, honestly.
Kenneth Gainwell is our leading receiver this season.
Yeah, that's absolutely freaking insane. Yeah. Like Calvin Austin's getting 16% snap share right now.
Yeah.
So that's where most of the starts come. Well, let's just get to the next, guy, the next team in this matchup, Cleveland. I'll spare you the details. You'll start Harold Fannin. That's it. You don't start any of these other Cleveland weapons here. They're all sits. They're all sits. You're not starting any of them if you can help it. I want to go to New Orleans, Tennessee. It's just as ugly. The only guy in this matchup that you actually want to start is Chris Olave in the A tier. The only in this matchup is Tony Pollard in the F tier. Pollard is just going to be so... It's just game script dependent with Pollard. Now, Pollard, I will say the last couple games, like 28 points in week 14 against Cleveland, San Francisco 18, and then 10 against Kansas City. New Orleans is a better matchup. I honestly think that we could have him ranked a little bit higher here. So I think Tony Pollard's a meh in the F tier. Everybody else in the Titans is a sit. Tyjae Spears is a sit.
Spears had a good day.
Spears did have a really good game. He had 20-plus points in his last game. I will say that. But that was, large in part because he had 10 points receiving against Kansas City and also had a touchdown.
Pollard's getting all the carries.
It was his first double-digit game since week 8. I'm not betting on Tyjae Spears. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to recommend that you do that. Chim DK and Alec Imaner? No. G tier, I tier for those guys. And again, the other Saints, Estime and Evan Hull at running back, I don't like. Mason Tipton is wide receiver 2. I don't like. Juwan Johnson as a tight end you could start, but Estime and Hull, Estime had I think 6 points and Hull had 0.3 points last week. You can't start those guys. And so again, in this matchup, you really only feel comfortable starting Chris Olave and maybe Tony Pollard, and that is absolutely it. Now, hopefully, we get to some greener grass here.
Yeah, this next matchup is going to be Indy and Jacksonville. For Jacksonville's running backs, Travis Etienne, A tier. He's been really, really good this year. This is a tough run defense matchup, though. IU is kind of golly. I'm so focused on IU right now because I'm in shambles with the Colts. The Colts run defense has been better of recent. But again, Etienne probably still going to cook the Colts like he did last time. Buckner should be good to go against Jacksonville, and that does make a big difference for the run defense. That's why he's not going to be in the S tier, honestly, because he's been so phenomenal. He's a must start, though. Jacoby Myers, I'll give you the green light with him. He was in the single digits last week. He had 8 targets, though, and his target volume has been very consistent, very steady. He's a good flex option. BTJ, not so much. Has been up and down, to put it nicely, this season. F tier, he's going to be a meh. Parker Washington had another career. He had his career game against Denver of all teams. 26 points last week.
Dude, I took him out of my lineup.
That's brutal.
Because I literally had nobody. I had injuries and I had Parker Washington and I went to waivers to replace him.
That actually sucks. That really sucks. But we're not telling you to start Parker Washington this week. That's once a season for Parker. Now, could he do it against the Colts secondary? Possibly, but I don't think it's any guarantee. The Colts A tier, Jonathan Taylor. He's been a lot more iffy the last third of the year, and this is against the Jags run defense, which is the best in the league. Michael Pittman, F tier, the only meh of the wide receivers here. Everybody else is a sit.
All right, going down to the next matchup here, and Tampa Bay's been kind of an enigma from a fantasy perspective. They've not really been good from fantasy the last half the season. Baker's been hurt. Bucky gets touchdowns vultured from Sean Tucker every week, at this point. Mm-hmm. Rachaad White still exists, so Bucky's a D tier start for us, but he's just D tier for us. He's honestly not been that good, which has been really surprising to me. I don't know why. But Rachaad White and Sean Tucker, I'm not starting. Mike Evans, you can start him. He's in the B tier. Chris Godwin's a meh in the F tier, and then Emeka Egbuka. He hasn't done anything, man. You can't start Egbuka. You can't start him. You cannot start him. Neutral matchups for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you'll start the guys you feel comfortable with, Bucky and Mike Evans, and then Chris Godwin. You're kind of, if you have to, you do. And for the Dolphins, you're starting Devon Achane, you're starting Jalen Waddle. Those guys both have neutral matchups as well. So neutral matchups across the board in this Tampa Bay Miami matchup. Jalen Wright and Malik Washington, you're not starting. And so again, you feel good starting, the ones here, Bucky, Mike Evans, Devon Achane, and Jalen Waddle. You feel okay about Chris Godwin, but you're not starting Rachaad White, Sean Tucker, and Emeka Egbuka in this game. And so really just starting the ones in this matchup, the positional ones, and kind of rolling with them.
Yeah, then we got New England and the Jets. For New England, no Henderson, we're assuming, because he left the game with a concussion against Baltimore. If he's a surprise active, then our rankings will change with Henderson behind, or Ramondre behind Henderson. But Ramondre, number one guy, going to be in the B tier. We will give you the green light to start him. This is also a great matchup against the Jets run defense, which has allowed the fourth most amount of points to fantasy running backs of recent. Behind Ramondre is DeAndre Johnson. He's not rankable. He's a sit. Stephon Diggs, D tier, give you the green light there. He had a good game against Baltimore. Very good game. Mac Hollins going to be in the G tier in a neutral matchup against the Jets pass defense. Breece Hall, only startable option for the Jets. Nobody else worth mentioning. Breece Hall, a lower end D tier running back. Again, the only reason he's a start is because he's the only relevant guy there. Red lights across the board for the running backs for the Jets. New England allowing the third least amount of points of fantasy running backs. So very low floor matchup for Breece.
All right, and then we'll go to the Carolina Panthers here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Start with the Seahawks. Great matchup for the running backs here against Carolina. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet both in the D tier. Kenneth Walker was the more productive guy last week, had the big play to get them in the red zone, and then Zach Charbonnet scored the touchdown, man. You can't make this stuff up, but D tier for both of them because, again, Charbonnet has touchdown upside every week. Kenneth Walker has generally just more upside, period. But, both of them in the D tier. I'm going to put both of them as starts in a pretty good matchup. I think that both of them could be productive this week and have 10-plus points. JSN S tier, you're not starting Shaheed. You're not starting Cooper Kupp. Carolina, you don't really want to start the running backs here. It's a terrible matchup for them. And also, again, like they've just not, neither of them have been consistently productive when they've both kind of been in this. These are the two backfields, in my opinion, facing off this week that are kind of like, oh, it's a 50-50 split. And one of them could be productive one week and the next week it could completely flip. Like, I don't really feel comfortable starting either of these guys. I'm going to say Mez for both of them in a bad matchup. I feel like a lot of people might have to start one of them. And then, start Ted McMillan, had a good game last week. C tier for him, and then F tier for Jalen Coker as well. Coker has been hit or miss, but he's had games recently where he has been productive. 14 points in week 15, 17 points in week 13. He only had 7 points against Tampa Bay last week. But you just never know. In the games where he has touchdowns, he's a double-digit guy. He's a 15-plus point guy when he has a touchdown. And so just a matter if he has a touchdown this week, and that's really, it's a tough Seattle defense. It's a neutral matchup from a secondary standpoint, but, F tier for all the other Panthers besides Ted McMillan in this matchup.
Yeah, then the Giants in Vegas, the two startable guys for the Giants, Tyron Tracy at running back, C tier, he's getting all the volume ahead of Devin Singletary, and then Wan'Dale Robinson, C tier for him as well. He will be a start. Literally yellow lights across the board for the Giants offense, so expect these guys to have adequate opportunity to be productive. Genty, the only startable guy for Vegas's offense at running back and wide receiver, he'll be in the B tier, had a great day against Houston's run defense. Of all the run defenses, it was against that team. Like, that's pretty surprising for Ashton Genty and impressive. A testament to why he was such a high pick this year. But green light for him. Expect him to be solid. Trey Tucker, even though it's a green light for him as a number one option there at wide receiver, he's not the number one option there at wide receiver. It's Brock Bowers, and that's it. Trey Tucker and Jack Besh, G and I tier respectively, sits.
Philadelphia, Buffalo here. You'll start Saquon and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, that late season comeback happened, man. And I'm glad we were kind of hammering to say, like, A.J. Brown, buy A.J. Brown, buy A.J. Brown. It actually paid off in big ways for us. So Saquon and A.J. Brown, A tier. Start both of them. Obviously, Devontae Smith in the C tier you can start. We're not starting anybody else in that offense. Good matchup for Saquon. Neutral matchup for the wide receivers. Buffalo, neutral matchup for James Cook. He's the A tier, though. He's obviously a touchdown machine. Khalil Shakir, the only other fantasy-relevant guy in this offense that I'd be comfortable starting, and he's in the F tier. He's a Met. It's a very tough matchup for him against the Philadelphia secondary. And he's been hit or miss recently anyway, so if you have to start Shakir in your flex spot, you do it. If you have another choice, you might have better options, though, at this point.
Chicago and San Fran. Swift going to be in the C tier. He's, again, just established himself as the guy over Kyle Monangai when he's healthy. Monangai will be in the F tier. He's rankable. He's last resort flex worthy, but not a guy that we're going to recommend starting this week. Neutral matchups, neutral lights across the board, yellow lights across the board for the running backs and wide receivers here in Chicago's offense. DJ Moore going to be in the D's tier. He salvaged his day from like a 9-point day to a 22-point day because of Caleb Williams shot down the field for that overtime win against Green Bay last week. But this week, again, expect the same type of boom bust opportunity for DJ Moore, assuming no Rome Odunze, who's week to week with that foot injury. Nobody else behind him is rankable at wide receiver. San Fran, you got CMC, S tier, start every week. Jawan Jennings, B tier, start every week. He's the only wide receiver left there. It's him and George Kittle, and that's it. Green light for Jawan Jennings as well at the wide receiver position. Chicago aligned the third most amount of fantasy points to wide receivers of recent. So very straightforward with the starts and sits here for Chicago and San Fran.
All right, last game here. Los Angeles versus Atlanta. The running backs for the Rams have been weird here recently in the sense that Kyron's still been productive, but he's not been as productive. But Blake Corum has had a touchdown in each of his last 4 games.
He keeps taking the touchdowns.
He has he's been in double digits each of his last 4 games. Yeah. And so I'm going to expect that trend to continue. I'm going to say C tier for Kyron, higher floor. D tier for Blake Corum, touchdown upside, and I think you start them both. Neutral matchup. Puka, obviously, S tier. Got Nathan out of the toilet bowl last week, and so you start him. Kanata Mumfield, obviously, we don't even have him ranked. And so I'd start the Rams guys. I would start both running backs, to be honest. I'd flex Blake Corum. And then Bijan in the S tier for Atlanta, of course. Bad matchup for him against the Rams, but I think he still produced plenty. He's a receiver as well. And then Drake London in the B tier. We won't start Algier. We won't start Darnell Mooney. And now it's up to you to set your lineup and win your last game of the year. Again, we love you all. Thank you so much for all of your support this season. It was a fun season. It really was. It was a fun season. I really liked, kind of the results of our draft strategy. It was fun to see all of that play out. And I think, we got better as this season than we have any other season in terms as it relates to giving people advice. I think that this season was tough because of the injuries. Like I think injuries really made the season tough for all of us. But we're all degenerates, and we're all going to be back here next year as well. In terms of us, we'll of course be around and very active on our Dynasty channel. If you're still here watching, you probably should be playing Dynasty. I'm just telling you that right now. Like, if you're still here in week 17 watching this video, you should be playing Dynasty. Dynasty domain, you can go on our channel and literally just, it's Nathan and I, same deal, same set, but we play fantasy football all year round. And it's much better than fantasy football for 5 months. So you want to play fantasy football all the time. Join a Dynasty League. We can get you in one. Go join obviously join the channel, go subscribe to the Dynasty Domain channel, but then join the Discord, send Nathan and I a message, we'll get you in a league. Like, come join and play Dynasty with us as well. We're going to be over there. In terms of this channel, probably June, which is 6 months from now. And so don't unsubscribe, because we're going to be back with a lot of great content next year. We're going to be working on, of course, making our content even better than it was this year. It's unsubscribe season, where people just unsubscribe and they're like, don't forget about us. So, but again, we couldn't have done this without you guys, and we love you. Thank you for all your support this season. Go win your freaking championships. Best of luck to you, and we'll see you soon.